Hello and welcome to another NFL Draft video breakdown from Pigskin Prodigies. The focus of today's video breakdown will be Boston College edge rusher Harold Landry. So starting off with the measurables from the combine, Landry measured in at 6'2", 252 pounds, and measured with 32 and 7/8 inch arms. So he's pretty average across the board with all of those measurements for his position group at edge. So that might limit his ability to play both defensive end positions in a 4-3. He's probably better suited to play a weak side 4-3 defensive end than a strong side defensive end because of his size, but that's not really a concern. It just limits his versatility a little bit. But he can also play 3-4 outside linebacker, I think, as well. So he still brings some positional versatility to the table. But that's really the only limitation I think that his size might have on him. But anyways, getting into the number one trait that I value for edge rusher prospects, snap explosion. This is like speed and burst and off the line of scrimmage and ability to time the snap count. And this is one of Landry's biggest strengths, I believe. Landry has a really good first step, so he can generate a lot of depth and get into the backfield quickly because of his explosiveness off the snap and ability to time the snap. Landry is almost always one of the first players, if not the first player, to move after the snap, and I think that sets up his pass rush plan usually, and it really sets him up to do a lot of different things as a pass rusher because he can get offensive tackles kind of panicking, and that can open up a lot of other opportunities for different pass rush moves and ways to vary his approach, I guess. So that's one of Landry's biggest strengths, being able to use speed to win battles off the edge. Then you get into the next aspect that I grade edge rushers on, which is run defense. Landry is a pretty good run defender, especially for his size. He's very disciplined. He plays with good technique. He is a capable edge setter. He doesn't allow many runs to be bounced outside of him. He does a good job of keeping contained. Does a good job of keeping his outside shoulder clean to free himself up to make tackles outside if he needs to, if runs get outside of him. And I think he displays good play recognition, I think, and awareness as well. Doesn't linger on blocks too long. Does a pretty good job of shedding blocks in a timely manner to free himself up to make plays. So Landry, I think, grades pretty favorably as a run defender. He won't be a liability at all, I don't think, at the next level. So the next trait that I look at when evaluating edge rushers is flexibility, and this is Landry's best trait, I believe. I think he has the best flexibility among edge rushers in this class. His ability to bend around the edge is absolutely elite. It reminded me a lot of Von Miller when I was watching him in that aspect of his game, because he can just flatten the edge at such tight angles and just turn the corner so consistently. It's pretty ridiculous. If you watch him, he'll run around the corner on the offensive tackle with his chest like 2 feet off the ground, running full speed, and his ability to run burst through his bend, I guess, around the edge is crazy, and his ability to maintain his balance at that angle is just ridiculous, and that's one of the traits that makes Landry such a difficult player to defend. Then the next criteria that I evaluate edge players on is power, and this shows up in both the run and pass rush game. Landry isn't an overpowering defender by any means, but he's certainly strong enough, I think. As far as run defense is concerned, I think he's strong enough to stalemate. He's not going to be a dominant run defender at the point of attack probably, but he's strong enough to stalemate. He sheds blocks pretty well. So I'm not really concerned about his run defense. Just don't expect him to be a dominant run defender with his lack of size, I guess. So that might limit him a little bit, but overall it's not too big of a concern. Then you get into how power translates to his pass rush ability. Like I said, he's not really overpowering. He's not a power-based rusher. He wins more with speed and flexibility around the edge, but he can use some power moves at times when he gets offensive tackles off balance, usually after using speed to beat them around the edge and get them overextended. Then he can take advantage of his power moves when offensive tackles are off balance, and he can throw a long arm at him and cause some disruption. And I've seen him use a push-pull move as well, so it does flash the ability to use some power moves, even though that's not his bread and butter. He does flash an ability to go to some power moves at times, and that's good, as he'll need to have a varied approach to be a consistently successful pass rusher at the next level. But yeah, I'd say as far as power is concerned, Landry is adequate there. So not really a weakness there, but power maybe limits him a little bit, but not too much, I would say, to sum that one up. So then you get into the next aspect that I evaluate edge rushers on, technique. As a run defender, I think Landry is very technically sound. He plays with leverage almost always, and his hand placement is very consistent as well, and that allows him to control blockers. And once he's controlled blockers and read a play, he typically sheds blocks in a timely manner, and does that pretty consistently. But as far as pass rush ability, I think that this is the area where Landry can grow the most with his pass rush technique. Typically, Landry goes to a dip and rip move around the edge, just uses speed to try to beat the offensive tackle around the edge, and tries to dip and rip past him. But sometimes Landry doesn't always have, or I'd say, a lot of times Landry doesn't always have a consistent plan B or inside counter move to go to once he gets an offensive tackle overextended and his rush stalls at the top of the arc. Then he needs to develop, I think, a more consistent inside counter move like a spin or swim move. I think if he added a consistent inside counter pass rush move to his game, that would really elevate his play to another level. And I think that's not a huge concern to me currently, because if you look at his junior season, he piled up like 16.5 sacks, I believe, when he was fully healthy in 2016, and that was without a consistent counter pass rush move. So if he can just develop a consistent inside move to cross an offensive tackle's face or spin back inside or something when an offensive tackle is overextended and his outside rush fails initially, I can only imagine how scary this guy could be as a pass rusher once he puts it all together. And I don't think he's far off at all. That could come in the first year or two of his career, and he could really make a huge impact, I think, in the league. Okay, and then last two areas that I evaluate edge players on: motor and closing speed. I kind of alluded to closing speed already when I talked about flexibility, but Landry does a good job of using his speed to make plays on the perimeter in run defense, and he also has good burst around the edge to finish plays in the backfield and make sacks and tackles for loss. So grades favorably in that category. Also has a good motor, I think. Does a good job of pursuing plays to the backside and continuing with his effort as a pass rusher as well, I would say, to not give up when his rush initially stalls. He continues. He's persistent, and that allows him to get some sacks occasionally too when his moves aren't working. He can win with persistence and get you the occasional effort sack, I guess. So that pretty much sums up my thoughts of Harold Landry as far as his traits. In terms of grading, I have Landry valued as an early to mid first rounder and a top 10 player in this draft class. I think he's the best pure pass rusher in this draft class, and I like him a little bit more than Bradley Chubb because I think his pass rush potential is a little bit higher. But yeah, that pretty much sums up my thoughts on Harold Landry. As far as an NFL comparison is concerned, I compare him to Vic Beasley of the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Vic Beasley, who I studied a few years ago, coming out of Clemson, as far as being a speed rusher with good flexibility and an edge player that's needing some development with his pass rush approach. but I think they win in similar ways. They're about the same size as well, and they probably would best be suited to play similar roles in the NFL. I think that he'll fit in as a weak side pass rusher in the NFL, just like Vic Beasley.